You published your episode. You worked on it. You thought it was good. And maybe you even thought that was one of your best episodes. And then you look at the analytics and they're flat. Or not what you expected. Worse than usual. And now you're sitting there asking yourself, what went wrong? Now, I'm going to stop you right there because what went wrong is the wrong question. As long as you keep asking it, you're going to keep getting answers that send you in the wrong direction. Now, a low-performing episode is not telling you that you failed. It's not telling you your audience doesn't care about that particular topic. And it's definitely not telling you to quit. What it's telling you is something very specific. And that is what today's episode is all about. Hey friend, welcome back to Christian Podcasting Secrets. I'm your host, Tammy Munson. And before we get into how to analyze the data, what does it mean, all those things, I want to anchor us with some scripture. And it's Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7 that says, "The beginning of wisdom is this, get wisdom, and whatever you get insight." Because it's not just about the numbers. It's what is the insight that we get from those numbers. And that's the whole episode in one little verse. So stay with me here. We're going to go through all the things and it's going to make absolute sense. Now, the majority of podcasters look at their numbers once a week. They feel something about them. They attach emotions to the data and then they make a decision based on that feeling. That, my friend, is not data analysis. That's emotional reaction with your platform analytics or maybe even a spreadsheet nearby. And I'll be honest, I have done it myself a time or two. And here are 3 wrong questions that I hear pretty consistently from clients or people who have signed up for free strategy calls. So the first one is, why did this episode fail? Now, the premise of that question is that a low download episode is a failed episode, but it's not. Download episodes measure reach, not resonance. And an episode can reach fewer people and impact the ones that reach far more deeply. Now, reach and resonance are not the same thing. And I want you to stop treating them like they are. Wrong question number 2, what do my listeners want more of? Part of this question is actually very smart and genuinely useful. Your data, your analytics, can show you what connected with your audience, what caught their attention, what brought people back to listen to older episodes, and all of that matters. But if you create content only based on performance, your podcast stops leading and starts reacting. And reactive content almost always loses its depth over time. Now, the sweet spot here is where audience interest and genuine usefulness overlap. If you chase one without the other, you're going to end up with either irrelevant content or hollow content. Wrong question number 3. Should I keep going? Now, I get this one all the time from podcasters, and bless their sweet little hearts. But like I tell them, one episode doesn't tell you anything about your calling. It tells you something about one Tuesday in your listener's week. Those are not the same conversation. I don't want you to make strategic decisions about the future of your podcast based on one episode's performance. Not one episode, not 3, not even a month. Data only tells us something meaningful over time. Now, before we start running any kind of diagnostic analysis on a low performing episode, there's something that we need to look at first. And most podcasters completely skip it. And that is your completion rate or your consumption rate. Now, you can find this on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, And it's going to show you how much of an episode your listeners have actually listened to. Now, it's an average. It's not every single listener, but it takes the average of all that and it gives you a number. Again, you can find this on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And this number, this completion rate or consumption rate, is the number that changes everything about what your data is trying to tell you. So here's the framework. So let's take two situations that have completely different fixes. The first is your completion rate is high, but downloads are low. That means the content worked. The episode itself did its job. The problem is distribution or promotion. Not enough people know that it exists. So how do you fix that? Promotion and reach. Okay, let's look at a different situation. Maybe the consumption is low. It's 40, 50%. There's something in that episode itself is causing people to leave. Maybe it's a long intro. Maybe it's a topic that didn't land. Maybe the conversation went off the rails a little bit. Maybe it's a pacing problem. Now, the fix here is we need to fix the content, not necessarily the promotion. Now, like I said, two situations, completely different solutions. But if you skip the consumption rate or completion check and you go straight to promoting a low completion episode, you're sending people towards something that's already losing them. So you need to check the consumption rate every time before you start making decisions. Now, current benchmarks aim for about 70% completion or better. I like to see 75%. That means they listened to 3/4 of the show, probably got to the outro, and then they're done. Now, if you're seeing something above 80%, that means you're making a real connection. If you're seeing consistently below 50%, that usually points to a structural issue. Maybe the intro was too long, the episode was too broad, it wasn't a great guest. Whatever that is. You need to know the situation that you're in, honestly, before you can do anything about it. But once you know the situation, here's what you got to do next. So when an episode underperforms, I want to run it through what I like to call the Decode Framework. Now, let me say this. A less than stellar episode is not a failure. It's a signal. And every signal has a specific message if you know how to read them. There are 5 signals. And so here's how to identify which one you're dealing with. Okay, the first one. The title didn't do its job. So before anyone listens, they tend to read the title. If the title doesn't communicate a clear, specific benefit or name a feeling or a pain point your listener is already having, she probably won't press play. It doesn't matter how good the content is if the title doesn't get her through the door. And so here's how to tell if this is the problem. Check your impressions versus your plays. On Apple Podcast Connect, this shows up as impressions versus plays. On Spotify, it's called streams. And your hosting platform may aggregate both of these metrics. Now, if impressions are normal, but plays are low, the content probably isn't the issue. It's probably the title. So this has a really easy fix. Rewrite the title and then republish it. And this works more often than people really think because a strong title on a existing episode can give it a second life completely. Okay, number 2. The topic didn't match the moment. Timing matters a lot in podcasting in ways that are genuinely underestimated. So an episode about a particular strategy that addresses the pain point of your listener, you drop it in December when your audience is already in survival mode. It's going to underperform compared to that very same episode in January when she's ready to start something. Your topic may have been exactly right. It's just the timing was off. So look at when your best performing episodes have dropped. Is there a pattern around that time of year, the day of the week, or the season your listener tends to be in. Your audience has its own rhythms, and so we need to learn them. Signal 3, you were talking to everyone. Now, this is where a lot of podcasters fall into this particular signal. They try to be all things to all people, and it just doesn't work. The episodes that underperform are often the ones that try to help the most people. The comprehensive episode, the something for everybody episode, the one that covered all the angles because you just didn't want to leave anybody out. Precision outperforms comprehensiveness every single time. Now, how can you tell if this was your particular problem? I want you to read your episode description, your summary. And if you can't name exactly who it's for in one sentence, probably too broad. Signal 4, the distribution and promotion just didn't work. Sometimes an episode is genuinely great and it just didn't get in front of the right people. So did you share it? Did you tell your email list about it? Did you post about it on social more than once? Most people don't. A good episode that nobody knows about will always underperform a mediocre episode that got pushed out consistently. Distribution is not optional. It's part of the job. So check your external traffic sources. If almost all of your plays came from within the app and you didn't actively promote the episode, the content may be completely fine. It was the distribution and the promotion that's the missing piece, and that could easily be fixed. Signal 5, it was the right episode for a smaller audience. Sometimes an episode underperforms broadly because it was specifically right for a small number of people, and those people needed that topic badly. Some of the podcasters that I've worked with over the years, when we look at their analytics through strategy calls, and we start to zero in on these low or the lowest download episodes, some of them have actually generated more direct listener messages than any other episode that month because the episode was precise. It was for her. Now, a low download episode that moves the right person deeply, that is not a failure, friends. That is your calling doing exactly what it was designed to do. So I want to take a quick pause here. If you have been looking at your analytics wondering what your data is actually telling you, that's exactly what a free strategy call with me is for. So I'm doing just a couple of them here in the month of May, just 30 minutes. We look at your analytics. We talk through what does it mean, and I'll tell you honestly what I see. So head on over to wildfirecreativecompany.com/free strategy call to grab a time. Again, I'm only doing this in the month of May, so there's only 2 more weeks to grab a time. I will drop the link in the show notes for you. Okay, back to it. Now, I know some of you are sitting out there saying, wait a minute, Tammy, I just can't explain away every bad episode. At some point, low numbers means something is wrong, right? Yes, absolutely. Over time, though, a consistent pattern of underperformance is worth paying attention to. But one episode is not a pattern. A signal says something here needs attention. A verdict says this podcast is failing. Your data can only give you signals. Most times, we ourselves are the ones turning them into verdicts. So I want you to stop doing that. So what does consistent underperformance over time actually tell you? Well, it usually means your titles need work, your topic needs more precision, maybe it's a distribution problem or promotional problem, or there's some sort of clarification that needs to happen. Every single one of those is completely fixable, 100%. And none of them actually mean that you're not called to this. So here's how I want you to approach looking at your data, your metrics, your analytics going forward. First, stop checking it weekly. Yeah, that's what I said. Weekly data creates weekly emotional swings. Now, I genuinely do not have bandwidth for that. And I'm guessing you probably don't either. So look at it monthly. Look for trends, not moments. A trend requires at least 3 data points moving in the same direction before it means anything. 1 low episode is not a trend. 3 in a row? It may be. Second, when an episode underperforms, run the Decode Framework before you do anything else. Check that completion or consumption rate first. Then ask, in this order, was it the title, the timing? Was it too broad, distribution or promotion issues? Or was it just right for a smaller audience? I want you to answer those questions honestly before you draw a single conclusion. Third, keep a very simple episode log. For every episode, I want you to track 6 things. Now, I know that we get all kinds of data and tracking from the podcast platforms. Apple, Spotify, YouTube have their own as well. But I want you to track certain things with this. So it's the title, the topic, the publish date, your downloads at 30 days, completion rate at 30 days, and 1 honest note on what you think worked or didn't. That's it. Nothing complicated, no color-coded spreadsheets required. The completion rate column is the one thing that most people skip over, but it's the one that will tell you the most. Real patterns based on your specific podcast and your specific audience. Now, this is how you get smarter about your content without chasing trends or making decisions based on feelings. Because we just can't be doing that. Not in our podcast, not in our business. And one last thing about the data. If your hosting platform is IAB certified, and the majority of them are, your download counts are already filtered for bots or auto downloads. Now, that does mean that they may be lower than you expected, but they're honest and they're true. So don't inflate them in your head to make yourself feel better about it. Just trust the clean number. Okay, so here's what I want you to do this week. Your assignment is to go back and find 1 episode, just 1, that underperformed. Check the completion rate first, then run it through the 5 signals. And so instead of asking, what went wrong? Ask, what is this telling me? Write down the answer. That is wisdom. That is insight. The thing is, data is not your enemy. It is not a verdict on your calling. It is not proof that you should quit or change everything or rebrand or start completely over. It is information. And information, read correctly, makes you better. The podcaster who learns to read her data clearly without letting it wreck her emotionally and without using it to confirm her worst fears, without chasing what performs at the expense of what matters, that podcaster builds something that lasts. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7, get wisdom, get insight. Not just about the numbers, but the insight from the numbers. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I hope this one was particularly helpful for you. If this did help, I would love if you would pass it along to someone that maybe you know that is currently spiraling over the data and is telling herself the wrong story about it. I'll talk with you next time. Bye, y'all.